Next thing would be is roll call. Then we're going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? All righty. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic on which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Should be running slow today. Any comments from the community and staff comments? Anybody here to talk? Nope. Okay, we'll just move on. Next thing is recognition. Dr. Tony.
Yes, President Holman, members of the board and audience, I want to take a moment to recognize a special month that's dedicated to the attention of all members of our community throughout the nation in recognition of National School Boards Appreciation Month. And I want you to know that I've had the opportunity to work with some very, very dedicated school board members in the state of Washington, Oregon, California. And I just am very, very blessed to work with the Ording School Board. I thrive as a superintendent when I work with people who are honest, hardworking, ethical, that love students and staff and do their best and make their very best decisions to support the students and their families in this community. And I am just very fortunate to have been given the opportunity to serve as your superintendent. But more importantly, I do appreciate the long hours that you spend reviewing documents in a variety of topics, getting up to speed on some very controversial and rigorous issues that are challenging this community and communities around the nation. But I'm especially proud of the work of this board, and I'm very thankful for the work that you do. And I hope this community really shows its appreciation for you as the elected officials and the governing body of the Ording School District. And I share this feeling along with my cabinet members, and I know members of the community have great respect for the work that you do. So at this time, joining me in sharing some special thoughts and thanks is Lynn Rossellini.
Is Lynn on?
Well,
now, how often does that happen? So let me start over again. So I want to thank Tony for allowing me to speak on behalf of the cabinet and our principals. We want to thank you for your hard work and your dedication. You do your homework, you hold us accountable, and you continue to put children first when you make decisions. And you do all this with little thanks. So we want you to know that we do appreciate you. The support you give us and the support you give our students makes a difference every day. The work is hard, and I'm glad we've got the right people on our school board. So again, thank you.
With that,
Hey, Tony, can I interrupt for a second?
of course you may.
Stanley, could we give the community an opportunity to comment again, just in case they weren't quick enough on hitting their mute buttons and coming online?
And before you do that, Tony and Lynn, thank you for the kind words.
You're very welcome. Very deserving.
Of course.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you from me.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're going to go back to community comments for a quick minute. Anyone would like to comment? Okay, Joe, we're not hearing anybody here.
All right. Go ahead, Tony.
Well, the next thing on the agenda is a discussion with the Tahali development. I want to call it Sahali because that's what it used to be back in the 2000s.
Well, I want to welcome Scott Jones to our board meeting this evening. Scott has prepared a presentation of approximately 20 minutes and allows for an initial 20 minutes for discussion and comments from the board. So I want to welcome you, Scott, and the program is now yours.
Thank you, Tony. Let's try the technical part first and share my screen. That screen. And you should see. All right, it says I'm presenting to everyone. Do you see the screen?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful, great. All right, that's the hardest part of the presentation right there, always.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you. I don't know if I should call you Tony, Mr. Apostle, thank you, Superintendent. I appreciate the opportunity, and board members appreciate the opportunity to give you a little presentational update on what's going on in Tehale. I'll try to be fairly brief, to 15, 20 minutes, and then leave some time for questions. So I think that's probably a more important part of the conversation, to make sure we address any questions that you may have. Okay, there we go. So what is Tehale? I'm sure most everybody's pretty familiar with the community. One thing I use this map for is just kind of for scale. You can kind of see the Tehale map down here. It's roughly the same size as Mercer Island as far as acreage and total number of residential units when complete. So it kind of gives you an interesting scale. But I'm sure most everybody here is pretty familiar with the location of the community. So by the numbers, we updated this about a week ago. So we sold about 2,350 homes, about 2,100 now occupied. So if you multiply that by roughly 3, you get about a little over 6,000 people that are living in the community now. I have about 35 businesses within the community, 2 elementary schools, both in the Sumner School District that are, I don't know, do you call the schools open right now? They're doing what schools are doing right now, right?
Right.
And we have about 11 parks and about 20 miles of trails that are complete so far. And for the last couple of years, and I'm sure for the next few years, it's about a $200 million a year economic impact to the community. And so we still got about 14 years to go. So the long range vision, or kind of what are all those numbers when the community is completely built out? It's approved for 9,700 homes. So we're roughly 25% of the way through. That would suggest a population of 25 to 30,000 people. The dedicated 10% of the land, or 475 acres, is dedicated towards an employment center. That can include a retail space, an office space, light industrial, education uses as well. All fits into that employment center category. Important pieces, we're preserving about 1,800 acres of the land, which is about 40% of the land is preserved in open space. A lot of that is or at least a portion of that, is the steep hillside, on the northeast side of the river that would be between Ording and Tehale. My son just decided to make some popcorn. If you hear a little popping in the background, my apologies. If you hear that microwave popcorn going off. Hard time later. We're all done. We think we'll have around 40 miles of trails, and we have in the land plan space reserved for about 5 to 7 schools, depending on exactly how 2 different school districts, and so kind of how things lay out. I got space for 5 to 7 schools, and really the goal is to see Tehale as a vibrant community that's a mixed use that really can be used as the model for land planning in the Puget Sound region. There's not a lot of master plan communities in Washington or in the Puget Sound region, but there are phenomenal examples all over the country of great master plan communities, and so that's our goal. I know one question I always get that's always important for folks is transportation improvements. Obviously, something the size of Tehale generates a significant amount of traffic as the growth happens. So So these are a whole series of a list of projects. Most of the projects so far that have been complete have been focused on the 198th Avenue corridor, which is a corridor that comes down from Lowe's basically at 410 down into the community. 4 of the 5 projects are complete. There's one more to be complete. This one, CRP, is County Road Project. And that section is basically this section, if you've driven out there through the kind of tight wetland area, it kind of narrows down to 2 lanes and goes around a little wetland right there. That's the last piece to widen, and we're widen that section to 4 lanes. Then that whole corridor will be widened to 4 lanes. We're literally starting construction on that in the next couple of weeks. It's taken us a long time, like 5 years, to get the wetland impact permit, because it's a whopping 0.3 acres of wetland impact, and it took us 5 years to get that permit. So we're a little behind where we thought we'd be, but happy to have all of it done now, and we'll be under construction here soon. And then the next focus will be something much more interesting for Orting, which is the new Rhodes Lake Road East Corridor. That's the official name that the county uses. It's kind of parallel to the Rhodes Lake Road corridor. Can you all see my mouse when I move the mouse around?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm sure all of you are familiar. This is the Rhodes Lake Road that currently exists up there right now. It kind of winds through, goes down by Victor Falls, really windy, curvy road. It's fun to drive in your sports car on a sunny summer afternoon. It would be terrifying to drive in a bus in the winter, I'm sure. And so instead of improving that corridor, the plan has been for, gosh, 13 years now. I got 13, 14 years, 2007. This corridor was approved by Pierce County. It's to build a new corridor that goes from the end of the Falling Water project, which is the end, this road right here ends, build a new corridor down here, and then have it connect down the hill and connect to State Road 162. And that connection is at the 128th Street Road. So there's a signal right there right now at 128th Street. 128th comes across the river and then turns into McCutcheon and kind of becomes a parallel road to 162 up towards Winco in Sumner. So it's kind of that parallel route there. So the next big project we're working on is the one that's in green in here. You know, it's referred to as County Road Project 5731. We affectionately call it the hill climb. It's a significant piece of work because the top part of this up on the plateau, as you all know, is 450 feet above the connection of the valley down below. It's a significant amount of grading that goes in there to make that road happen. It's a significant road. It's a 5-lane road, 2 lanes going up, or excuse me, 3 lanes going up the hill and 2 lanes going down the hill. If anyone's familiar with the Lakeland Hills Parkway, it's similar in scale to that road going from the valley up there from 167 up into Lakeland Hills community. Our goal is to start work on that project starting this year. We have some significant work to do and working with the county to acquire right-of-way. We've acquired 5 of the 7 parcels that we need. We've got 2 more pieces to acquire, and then we can start working on that corridor. The next piece is widening, actually not. These will all 3 of these pieces will happen basically simultaneously. The hill climb section, widening of 128th Street to 4 or 5 lanes, which is a county road project. And then the other big one is improvements along State Road 162 that includes the intersection where this new Rhodes Lake Road or the existing 128th Street comes in. At that intersection, DOT has concluded that a roundabout is the appropriate traffic control at the intersection. So we're moving forward with those plans. I've got this blue line extending a ways north and south of the intersection along State Road 162 because the improvements that are at that intersection actually extend about 3/4 of a mile in each direction, north and south of the intersection. So there's room for merging for the different traffic flows as it comes in and out of there. The final piece of that corridor it would be an additional bridge. Right now, the McCutcheon Road Bridge over the Puyallup River is a 2-lane bridge. That bridge is in perfectly good condition. And so the plan would be to build an additional bridge parallel to it. And then one bridge would handle the eastbound traffic, the other would handle the westbound traffic. That would be the final piece of that corridor. And then the final piece of Rhodes Lake Road is this purple section tying in the main corridor, tying it back up to falling water area. That one's not quite as critical. That one really makes a second connection and really won't happen until we develop this area up here. This is really the primary connection. And you can kind of see the reason I drew this map like this. You can see how when all this is done, there's now a connection that goes all the way to Tehawley. This is a 5-lane road all the way through Tehawley and actually turns into 198th and to head north out of the community. So it effectively ultimately provides a new parallel connector to 410. Nothing in Washington is very straight as far as roadways go because there's like hills and valleys in the way, but it does provide a secondary access from the valley up and down from the plateau, and provides better access from the the Bonnie Lake Plateau over to the Puyallup Plateau as well. And so that was a lot of time on that, but I think everyone's pretty interested in that component of it. Just one last piece. We've committed to DOT. We have an agreement with Washington State DOT to contribute up to $31 million of improvements on State Road 162. The only project that's identified for that 31 million is the intersection and the extensions of the intersection, which we estimate to be about $10 million right now. The additional $21 million of that, those projects are undefined at this point, and we'll continue to work with DOT staff over the next several years to identify, and the legislature to identify appropriate locations for us to contribute to. Maybe we come to a partnership agreement where we fund a portion of a project and the state funds a portion of the project, but those details are to be determined at some point. Okay, so I'll move on. Do want to mention though, cost-wise, all of that, all of those improvements that I just walked through, well, sorry, 198th are all, those improvements are related to phase 1 of Tehawley. All the rest of the improvements are related to phase 2. The cost of those improvements in phase 2 is about up to $150 million. Rhodes Lake Road itself is about $120 million, and then the $31 million to DOT. That adds up to about $25,000 a house that's approved in the community, and it's about 3.4 times the Pierce County impact fee that's currently charged in Pierce County. So that's a significant mitigation that we're funding 100% of it. We're responsible to design it, we're responsible to permit, and we're responsible to manage construction of those projects. The other big piece of mitigation was a new wastewater treatment plant that we finished about a year and a half ago now. We have conveyed that to Pierce County, and that's fully functional. That went fairly well for as big and complicated as a project that is. We also have a voluntary mitigation or voluntary fire mitigation fee. In fact, I have the first check in my backpack, and I'm meeting Mr. Backer tomorrow morning for coffee to give him that first check. So, and Tehawley also has affordable housing requirements. So we're required to provide 10% of the units in phase 2, which again is 7,100 units, 10% in a median income category, 10% in a moderate income category, and 10% in a low income category. And so that's like the median income is 100 to 120% of income. The moderate income is 80 to 100% of median income, and the low income is for those who make under 80% of the median income in Pierce County. So we have a 10-10-10 type structure. The infrastructure, a lot of infrastructure, the entire storm drain system and the entire parks and trail system in Tehawley are all owned and maintained by the Tehawley Owners Association at no cost to Pierce County. So all that comes through the Owners Association. The residents pay for that, the maintenance of those facilities. These numbers we're actually in the process of updating these numbers. So these are a couple years old. But total builder sales, which is kind of a proxy for total economic impact. So these were done in 2018. It was about $740 million. We expected it to be about $900 million over the following 5 years. I think we have shattered that number. Our pace and is significantly higher than expected, and the price point, the prices, values have gone up significantly as well. So I think we'll exceed that. But what's interesting to look here is you can look at, these are all just two different ratios really. Of the $742 million in sales, 110 million of that went to pay taxes and fees. So it's a good chunk. It's a good chunk of that sales price that goes back into the, the state, local, different taxing districts, including the school districts. Okay, so for fun, because I had to do something for fun and not be so all boring with taxes and stuff. This is our latest park. We're just about to open. We're almost done with it. Really cool park, 18 acres, which is a significant size park. It's got a event lawn, really cool community gardens, 30 different or 30 community garden beds that are raised up off the ground for residents to grow things in. A dining area, outdoor dining area that's absolutely beautiful, made out of big chunky wood, which is a personal favorite of mine, with room for 48 people to have dinner. Obviously, that could be broken into 2 pieces as well. And there's barbecues with those as well. A little event pavilion, the stormwater pond, bocce ball court, all kinds of fun stuff. But I think the really fun thing that we did with this one is it's designed as a STEAM park, which is STEM with their, I guess they're adding the A in there now for arts. And so we worked with the Sumner School District on this park because, as you see up here in the corner, this is the Tahoe Heights Elementary School right adjacent to this park. So we wanted this park to have the opportunity to be an extension of the school and be kind of a natural classroom for the school. So there's all sorts of things that the students can come out and study, as far as some infrastructure type stuff like how storm drain works. They could go out and measure when it rains, how much does the water level rise here? How much does it rise in here? Is there any water in this infiltration area? So they could study some storm drain stuff. There's bird boxes, there's bat boxes, there's all sorts of different types of flowers and plants that have stories behind them. The trail that goes around is measured in metric and in English, so you can kind of learn those conversion rates. And then there's different art pieces. There's a crossword puzzle that's etched into a rock that's the size of a car. And so just all kinds of fun stuff, and then a couple art installations as well. Fun stuff for the kids to learn and experience. And I'm sure that the teachers there will find, I'm an engineer. I'm not the creative teacher. It amazes me what teachers come up with to do with kids. I am not that person. I'm an engineer spreadsheet geek, and so I'll be excited to see what teachers come up with of how they can use the space. So we're very excited to open this. It'll open up this spring. Okay, so specific to schools, that's certainly the topic at hand. This is an interesting map. So this is the master plan of Tahoe. And then the area that's left bright and visible is the area that's within the Ording School District. And the area that's screened kind of behind is the area of Tahoe that's within the Sumner Bonnie Lake School District. I think the lines only make sense to people who did boundary line and section line surveys in the 1800s. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to any of us, I'm sure, but it's where we're at. It's where we're starting. That is the line right now. The vast majority of the development that's happened in Tahoe so far has been in the Sumner School District. These parcels over here, kind of off to the left, especially these ones here, do have development in them and have homes in them. Although all those areas are within the Trilogy community, which has a deed restricted on it on the plat that residents or homeowners must be 55 plus and no one under 19 can live in those neighborhoods. So there may be 1 or 2 students for obvious situations where the grandparents had to step in to take care of a child or something. And certainly those types of exceptions are allowed. I'm not aware of any. I'm just suggesting that that's possible. But effectively, we haven't had any development in Tahoe that's generated students yet. And the first piece is actually this little orange piece that's barely even visible, is a neighborhood of townhomes that's under development right now. The first folks just moved in December, and they will certainly have some children. What's interesting there, just literally not even across the street, it's on the other side of the fence from Tahoe Heights Elementary School. And so obviously that school, obviously right now everybody's doing virtual, so it's not quite the consideration. Sumner is certainly willing to accept waivers, that's the word I want. into that school, so long as they have capacity. But at some point in time, we're going to have to address that. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Long term, and I'll go into this in a little more detail on the next slide, but the total number of residential units in Tehale that are within the Ording School District is about 3,650 units. In addition to that, there's additional almost 600 age qualified units. Those ones, of course, they generate property taxes, but don't generate students. Tony, I left these numbers as of December of 2019 because this is exactly the same numerical presentation that I gave to the board in October of 2019, and that I had provided to the working group that was working on the capital program. I'm planning on updating these numbers. Obviously, things change a little bit here and there, but I thought to be consistent, we'd start with this, so everyone's seeing the exact numbers twice, and then we can build from there. So here's a bit more detail, and I did provide this to this exact spreadsheet to Dr. Shepard and the group that was working on the capital facilities and planning group. That I think our last meeting was just about a year ago. Maybe it was in February. A year ago was our last meeting. And so this gives you a sense of the year as we go through. I broke this out into East and West because it is important from a school and where the students are going to go to school, whether that growth is on the west side of the community or on the east side. So provide that detail. And then the number of homes that we anticipate to come online or be occupied during that year. And then the next column is number of age qualified homes that would come online within the Ording district, but obviously those ones don't generate students, but they are important for generating property taxes. Also estimated the impact fee. This is based on the current county impact fees. I believe I increased it at 2% annually. It's triggered. It's tied to CPI, so it is variable. So it's probably a little bit conservative. Oops, sorry, a little bit conservative here on estimating a 2% growth in that rate. If you add all that up, that adds up to approximately $16 million in impact fees that would be paid over the life of the development. But this gives you this is the column that's kind of important to focus on. Is the number of homes. This is homes, not students. Number of homes that would come online in a given year. The reason 2027 is so high and kind of anomaly is there's an apartment complex planned in that location. So that's kind of a quick jump of 300 units. An apartment complex that would happen fairly quickly.
Scott, can I interrupt and ask a question?
Please.
And the question's not necessarily intended for you, but more Tony. What ratio do we use for a home for how many students we plan to add?
Oh, shoot. George, you're asking me a question. I think, what, 0.08?
Tony, I've actually got it on this slide, so you beat me to the punch, George.
Oh, darn, I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. It's all right.
Oh, there it is. It's, okay, go ahead. 0.4.
A typical ratio is about 0.4. Yeah. And yeah, that's not a Newland thing or a Scott Jones thing. That's my understanding. That's what we used and what is commonly used for environmental impact statements in the region. So
hey, Scott, I have a question for you.
Please.
In the Ording school boundary property, within the Ording school district property, how many homes are planned on those sites, and are there any that are age restriction, like 55 and over?
Yeah, so that's what this table is right here.
Okay.
This is not Tehale. This is within the Ording School District. So it's 3,650 homes that will have students theoretically, and 582 that would not. So Tony, maybe let me walk through this slide real quick, and this is the end of it right here. And I kind of tried to summarize everything on this slide, and I think this is kind of where the discussion and dialogue goes. So really starting this year, if you want your kind of elevator discussion, it's roughly 300 to 400 homes a year. This is in the Ording district. 300 to 400 homes a year. You translate that to 120 to 160 students a year. And by 2033, we've got 3,600 homes with 14 to 1,500 new students. And we've identified 2 elementary schools and 1 middle school site. Again, just identified in the master plan. There's nothing other than we've set that land aside on a picture for that. So I think this slide kind of is the bottom line of what I wanted to convey to the board. And I think kind of probably starts a conversation and why I think that the Q&A question is probably pretty important now.
So Scott, the 2 identified elementary schools and 1 middle school site. Those are identified in the Ording School District section. Yes.
Correct. Yes.
Do you have details? They're drawn. Obviously, there's no solid plan, but acreage form, etc.
We've typically used 15 acres for an elementary school site and 25 for a middle school site.
Okay.
But again, you're right on the money, George. They're little pink blobs on a map. And I think the reality is that we would like to work with the school district to understand what the appropriate location, size, orientation, all those kind of details are. You know, I joke that these master plans, they're wrong. You know, you just can't plan of something that's complex one day and then go build it for 25 years. They're wrong. It's just a matter of how wrong they are. So we have lots of flexibility to move things around and adjust and work with various partners on where things should go.
Scott,
It's kind of a sobering picture when we consider we have 2,700 students in the district today. And in just this section and this development, we could add more than 50% of our current student base.
when I'm looking at your the map, Scott, and you pointed out the little pink blobs, I might be colorblind. I can't find the third pink blob.
No, I think there's the better map. Oh, no, I guess that's. I think we had this one identified, and it's not in the Ording district. I think that was. You know what it was? We were assuming, and maybe this was an inappropriate assumption, but again, it's a map, so we can change it. We were assuming that we would probably realign the districts at least a little bit, so they kind of made more sense with the land plan. But again, if that's not the case, we can adjust to that.
Thank you.
Scott, there's a gap between the east side and west side. Is that is there a road connecting the two at least?
Yeah, this section right here actually is not part of Tehale and not part of our ownership. It's the very end of, you go down 198th, it turns into 160th. You wind your way all the way to the very end. And in fact, where the old Bridge Street used to wind down and connect right there. So there's actually a series of homes in there that are on, I don't know, 2 to 10 acre lots back in there. So that's an occupied parcel right now. That's not part of Tehale and not part of our ownership. There would be a road connecting, you know, from this road here into that neighborhood. We certainly obviously wouldn't abandon them, but it doesn't show up real well. But this area right here is actually part of the Sumner School District. So this screened area continues down into that bar down there. Yeah, it's probably the least obvious line you could draw.
Okay. And there's a significant portion, if I recall, I can't quite see it on the map, of commercial development space within our district lines, correct? Yeah,
so the darker kind of maroon and this orange color here, this is commercial, and then the southern end of this parcel here is commercial industrial. It's part of the employment center, so there's a lot of flexibility of exactly what it could be over time. Yeah.
Okay.
This little red blob in the corner here is, I think it's technically employment center commercial, but it's the East Pierce Fire Station site that we deeded to them.
Could you, would you mind taking us back to the kind of road, kind of map you had laid out? And can you kind of point out to me right now, I'm really bad at trying to visualize the map, but I think I have the west side of that on the lower left of that map kind of outlined. Is that right?
Yeah, kind of. So
Okay.
right here, that notch is actually that place we were just talking about. That's in the summer school that's occupied, right? So I guess the line would kind of go up right here, and then over. It probably aligns with that line right there.
So if we were talking about transportation for some of the first homes being built in the next year or two, what would that look like for students in Ording? Would they be connecting then to the orange loop and then coming down to the 128th, 162? Is that what?
Yeah. So this loop is not built yet. A little portion over here is, but this loop is not built yet. But this road now is completely built. This kind of center one down here. So for those two, the townhome parcel is right here on that map. So they would go down the orange road and then all the way up the blue road. And I don't know how your transportation routes work. You obviously could go down Rose Lake Road in McCutcheon. I'm not sure how that works with the bus, or maybe you do end up going to all the way to 410. I think Lovey, I met Lovey one time, and she explained to me that they could go down Rose Lake Road when the weather was good, but when the weather was not good, they went all the way to 410.
And I think that was in a discussion. I was in that discussion in 2019. That was the plan.
Okay.
So we wouldn't be looking at a real good road trip for our students until those roads were built out.
Yep. So our plan is for this road, for this connection to be made, and these improvements to be at least the green, the blue, and this kind of whatever purple color that is, kind of fuzzy, for those to be completed by the end of 2024 calendar year. So kind of the middle of your 24-25 school year.
Thank you for that.
So Scott, is the roundabout on 162? It's hard to visualize how massive that roundabout would have to be to handle the vehicle traffic heading north and south on 162.
It's a pretty massive roundabout. My joke is I think you might be able to play football in the center circle.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
It's three lanes of traffic on the roundabout in a pretty sizable center island. It's massive.
That was also one of my other questions too, was if you had an idea of what the size of that roundabout was going to be. I've been up in Tahale. It's a gorgeous development. And the main roundabout that I come into there that leads to the cafe area. I mean, that's pretty big, but I didn't know if that was going to be even bigger down there on 162, 128.
Yeah, it definitely would be. The one in there's three roundabouts in Tahale, and all three of those would be smaller than this one. We're in the process of designing improvements to two of the three roundabouts in Tahale right now to actually widen them and improve them.
Gotcha.
Hey, Scott, Stanley again. So my understanding, they're not going to do anything to 162, so that still will be a 2-lane road, right?
Yeah, for the foreseeable future. And so the other part of our strategy on transportation is we've been working with the legislature for several years and working on getting funding for 162. We've been successful getting a couple of studies funded, but that's all we've gotten so far. Our legislative agenda this year, and this is Tahale's legislative agenda, no one else's, is to ask for. We have $1 million in the 2021, the current biennium. We have $1 million in there funded towards the design of improvements at the 410-162 interchange. Because of COVID and because of DOT's loss of revenue, they did not start the project, so that money has not been expended. So our first ask of the legislature this year will be to continue to fund that $1 million project. Our second ask will be to put in in the budget about $7 million for construction of improvements on 162 and 410, improvements at that interchange, which is what DOT is planning on doing there is a double roundabout where each of the ramps connect with 162. They turn into a roundabout. That would allow some pretty significant traffic flow improvement without having to replace the bridge across 410. And so that makes it a $7 million project instead of a $20 million project. And our third ask to the legislature, and this is a little bit of a dream. I'll acknowledge that, but you got to start with, is to allocate about $30 million of improvements, $30 million towards improvements on 162 that would leverage the remaining $20 million that we have committed. And therefore you'd end up with at least $50 million of improvements on 162. We're not trying to identify exactly where those improvements should go. We think obviously that should be left up to DOT. They're the experts on there, but at least get the legislature to identify some funding for us, especially if a new revenue package is passed, which you probably saw in the paper, I believe on Tuesday. That was dropped at and hinted at. Although I'm sure as much as we all like the idea of having transportation improvements, none of us like the idea of a $1 per gallon gas tax. So,
do we have any questions for Scott?
I have a question. Scott, you said that there was land and lots set aside for school development within the Ording School District boundary. Can you tell us the cost of those?
So typically what we've done and what we did with the Sumner School District, in my experience, with Newland around the country, is we typically just do an appraisal for that site, and that's the cost of the property.
Scott, I got a question. When did the hearing examiner set aside those school sites? And do you know the history of, was the Ording School District behind those, demanding those set-asides, or was that something that the developers did on their own?
Well, we identified the sites on the master plan as part of the phase 2 environmental impact statement that we did between 2014 and 2018. And we met with Dr. Shepard 2 or 3 times a year during that process, keeping her up to date on what we were doing. Obviously that the draft EIS was published for comment, and the final draft EIS was published for comment, and then obviously the final was published at that point. I don't believe that the district formally commented on the EIS itself, but we did have a significant amount of conversation with Dr. Shepard along the way.
Okay,
But
thank you.
to ensure we at least had we were in the right order of magnitude anyway. As far as the hearing examiner, those kind of, Tony, complete that is the approval from the hearing examiner is part of the project master plan for Tehele, which includes the master plan I've been showing. So, but again, that does allow for flexibility.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, just going back to the school set-asides, just in general, and you were talking about that third one that kind of got put into the Sumner Bonnie Lake district rather than the Ording district, and you said that there's flexibility and you would revisit that. But because all these neighborhoods are quote unquote planned out, what do you sorry, I'm not a developer, so I don't understand what are you going to take away if we indeed needed you to make space for another school because we're going to have that many students?
Is there viable land for another 15 or 25 acres within those pieces of property we have set aside in the Ording district?
Or is that going to be something we're going to have to look outside of the Tehele boundaries for?
I'm not sure if I want to perch a school on the edge of that cliff.
Yeah.
Like what's left for us?
Oh, yeah. No, there's one thing you got to be careful on, and on this map, especially when on a presentation, is the scale. You can barely even see it, but like over here and along the edge, there's actually a 100-foot buffer at least 100-foot buffer from either the edge of the property line or the edge of any kind of a steep slope. And that's absolute minimum just by zoning. And then any geotechnical analysis would be done to ensure that you wouldn't need to be further away. So it's a little, I mean, you know, look at this block right here of green is 260 acres. So it's very deceiving how large things are in here. So it's not, no school's perched on the edge of the cliff. There'll certainly be careful with that. We certainly wouldn't.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Tony, I did, if you don't mind, I did find, I'm logged onto my network. I do have a map of the roundabout if everybody would like to see that.
Oh, yeah.
I can show that. I think everybody can see that. So this is oriented with north to the top of the page, so 128th going off to the east. It doesn't have dimensions on it, but so if you look at real close, the dashed line underneath here where my mouse is, that's the existing road, the existing corner. Same thing up here. So it's and it has to be pushed all to the east because you have the railroad tracks and the trail on the west side of 162. So the whole roundabout is pushed off to the east side. So
Is there crosswalks in this?
is that what?
Are there crosswalks in this roundabout?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yep. This is actually a 12-foot wide mixed use trail that parallels the entire Rhodes Lake Road we wanted to tie into the Foothills Trail. So from the Foothills Trail all the way up Rhodes Lake Road, that will tie into Tehawai's trail network.
So you may be taking the pet doctor out down there.
Yeah, he actually called me, and it's kind of a funny story. When he called me and introduced himself and explained to me where he was, I was like, oh boy, this is going to be a tough conversation, right? Because we're impacting. And I honestly, this is preliminary, and so and DOT is handling the right of way, so it's not for me to give him a definitive answer. But I told him that based on what I've seen, it did look like we were impacting his property. And his response was, well, you know what? Maybe I just move up to how I like everybody else.
That sounds like him.
I was like, okay. So I was happy it was a pleasant conversation. It wasn't a difficult conversation, but you're absolutely right. This is his building right here. Yeah. So hopefully that gives you a feel of the scale of this roundabout. It is substantial.
And I've voiced my concern way back when that we dropping all this traffic onto a 2-lane road.
Yeah.
Yes.
Back in the 2000, before you was even there, when it was Sir Holly, I was on the committee, and that was my thing. Is like, wow, you're dropping all this traffic on a 2-lane road. What happened to the bridge? I thought it was building a bridge that was broken or sunk or something. They was trying to get a quicker way in the ordering. They abandoned that project.
Well, I think there's been some rumors of over the years of recreating the Ording or the Bridge Street in Ording. I don't think any of those rumors really had any substance to them.
Okay.
I'm not sure you'd really want to. You wouldn't want to funnel Tehawai traffic into downtown Ording and have to go through Ording because the majority of that traffic is going to want to go north on 162 anyway. So it seems that you'd want to have, from an Ording perspective, you want to have that connection be north of Ording. Because then it would minimize the amount of traffic going through right through the community.
Any more questions for Scott?
Just a quick comment. Scott, I know I've seen you present a few times now, and it's taken me a while to wrap my head around some of this stuff. The stuff that comes naturally to you takes me a little bit to digest and understand. So I appreciate you taking the time and coming back and talking to us and letting us continue to ask questions and wrap our head around what's going to come in the future for us. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, Scott, I wanted to ask, you got the 3,653 homes, and those are 2019 numbers. 20 was bizarre, so I don't expect you to have more up-to-date numbers, but I'm just curious, are you anticipating that number increasing or decreasing? And you have an idea?
Yeah, I don't think the total number will change a whole lot. I mean, it might move, plus or minus 100, something like that, which is, a relatively small number. Ironically, since 2020 was weird, it was weird, as we all know, for a variety of reasons. But from a home sale standpoint, we were well behind our forecast through May for obvious reasons, right? Things were shut down. We were not considered essential. And so we shut down both sales and construction for 6 weeks. And then from June on, we could not move fast enough. We actually had 447 home sales last year. Our forecast last year was 350. And so we absolutely shattered that. And we continue to see that demand for the first couple of weeks of the year. I'm a little bit leery that demand continues for a long time. I think maybe the first half of this year, and then it probably settles down a bit. And that's why I kind of threw out at the end, 300 to 400. That's probably a decent planning number, 300 to 400 homes a year. That's probably about the accuracy that we can look at, especially over a 10-year period.
Okay.
Well, Scott, we want to thank you, and we will like you to come back and keep briefing us and let us know what's going on. We got some big decisions.
We do, and absolutely. And let me know what I can do to help with those decisions. That's part of what I can. Hopefully, I can help with that.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving right along would be the incoming superintendent salary. Carrie and Miss Kibidoo. So all you. Miss Thibodeau?
Sorry, my mute button keeps appearing and just on my screen. I apologize for that. So Melissa and I had the opportunity to host the community forum last night to discuss incoming superintendent salary, and really the purpose of the forum was we realized that in years past, compensation has been a topic of conversation for the community. So we wanted to host the forum and give folks an opportunity to share their views and priorities, and really the philosophy around compensation and what they valued in a superintendent. So we came away with some really good discussion and comments. Some of the themes, we asked Melissa, please chime in. We kind of opened up the conversation with what does it mean to be fair and competitive when it comes to compensation. So Melissa, maybe I'll just turn it over to you if you want to highlight some of the themes we heard.
Well, then that's what I was doing, is frantically looking for my notes. So
Okay.
it was actually a better turnout and a better meeting than I had thought it might have been, knowing our history. But overwhelmingly, what Carrie and I got from it was that our community that was represented there last night trust us as a board to make a wise financial decision when it comes to this. So that was really good to hear. And that most of the people really understand that you have to, you can't be cheap, quote unquote. And that what was kind of one of the things I think, Carrie, that we talked about afterwards was that the higher education was not as important to our community members as their experience, kind of having multiple roles within education so that they can come in, hit the ground running, much like Tony did, and be able to take boarding where they need to go.
Yeah, I agree with you, Melissa. There was a strong desire that whatever candidate we're entertaining, that they've been in school buildings, that they've either been a teacher or worked with, in administration or had some kind of in-school experience, and then that carried more value than, a doctorate with no experience. So that was definitely clear. And I think the message I heard too was that members who were present last night were willing to pay. As you mentioned, they want a quality candidate who checked the boxes of integrity and truthfulness, strong communication, and someone who would connect well with not just our schools, but also the city council and the mayor and the fire department and the businesses and the families in the community. So someone who is versatile in that way and could relate with all the different groups that make us a community. There was also, those were the primary things. We didn't get into, nuts and bolts of how much and what stipends and all that kind of information. That's the responsibility of the board. But it was good to hear that as we're selecting a candidate, what the community values most.
And we did have an opportunity to, because as we know that this forum was scheduled originally to be just a discussion around salary, we kind of pulled that into the philosophy discussion of salary and what people are, what does that mean when we talk about fair and competitive. We also discussed and talked about ACT and how we as a board try to model that Tony brought in, and that it's important for us. And as we gave way to some of the discussions about what quality people and ACT are, it was a nice opportunity to remind people that they have an opportunity to have a voice during the search process and to refer to the calendar of events that are going on with our search team. And there was a couple of suggestions, and Holly, I know that you were there last night. And I think one of the suggestions is that if there becomes a point where community members can be involved in that interviewing team, if we can have those posted on the website so people know when is the point that they can become involved, that they would like to do that as well.
Yeah, they do care about the search process and wanted to know kind of where we're at along the way. So that would be important. I think one of the other things that I actually, in hindsight, left the forum not having a ton of clarity around, do we develop a plan that, because we're a small district, we pay less, or because we're surrounded by large districts, do we pay more? And because we're in the Puget Sound, do we pay more than the East Side? And I think the community, what I took away, and Melissa, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're really looking for a balance. We know we can't be that little small town district that pays at the lowest levels because we really want someone of quality, but we also are not the same as a Puyallup or a Sumner Bonnie Lake or a Kent School District. So that as a board, we're going to have to find a way of balancing all of the size differences and locations and and the competition we have with surrounding districts.
So all in all, it was a good event to include community.
Yeah.
And it went well.
Yeah. Yeah, it went well.
I want to thank you guys for taking that on. I really appreciate that. We do have a discussion that it's on the 28th. We'll be actually talking about numbers and what do we want. We'll try to come out of that with a package that we can give to the research team to finish up with their pamphlet and everything else. I really thank you. So we got the thumbs up. So let's move on and get a nice superintendent like Tony.
Thanks so much for doing that, Carrie and Melissa. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Any questions for those two? Thank you, guys. Next thing we're going to move on is the financial report, and that's with Marcy Bannon. Are you on?
I am here. Hi.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Fine.
Good.
Is this prepared by, my dear?
It is a prepared by. Any questions for me?
So how are we doing with these?
We're doing about as we expected. Not a lot of difference from October. Our FTE continues to drop a little bit, which I thought would happen over time because we had our largest enrollment in September, and the other months, since we're averaged out over the year, are a little bit lower. So our average FTE compared to budget is currently at about 136 FTE under budget. But that's to be expected. We're in an interesting environment, and not everyone chose to send their younger kids to school.
All righty. Any questions for Marcy? Hearing
And-
none, go ahead.
Well,
I was going to say, and just one thing to note, in case you guys are wondering about impact fees and where we sit with that, that is on page 4. And so capital projects is all impact fees. Since we just had the discussion with Tahali, I thought I'd just draw attention. That's where it all goes, and it's all on that page. So just let you guys know.
Well, have any more
Okay.
questions for Marcy? Thank you for doing a wonderful job like you always do with all the kind errors.
yes, and
Thanks,
thanks for
Nancy.
answering my questions. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Carrie, anytime.
Thank you. And next one, we're going to move on to the draft grade level phase in return. Dr. Tony is up.
Yes, the long-awaited plan to be submitted to the board this evening. I want to share quickly that one of the things that was really essential as we moved through this pandemic, while we moved to remote and garnered all the resources necessary to make remote learning the best possible opportunity, we found that there's nothing more important than in-person learning, and everybody is really excited about getting back together. But we have to keep in mind that the danger still lurks out and among the entire community with regard to the COVID-19 infections. And they are very, very deadly. And we have a safety protocol that's in place that we believe will allow us to reopen schools safely and in a staggered method. But one of the things that I want to emphasize is the fact that I do appreciate the board's support for not jumping in and over-promising our community that we could reopen and then under-delivering. So over-promising and under-delivering we saw happen among other school districts who anticipated that they would open, but then had to quickly draw back. And we didn't do that. Here we are making a very conscious effort to strike out on a very difficult and challenging effort to reopen our schools. And I want to thank the cabinet and the leadership team. I want to thank Holly for her great work in terms of her communications. You're going to hear from Chris Willis in just a moment, and his work has been just outstanding. Lots of compliments to go around among the team, but I'm very proud to present this plan to the board for your approval tonight. So, Chris, please take it.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Apostle, Board of Directors. One of the things that we've spent a lot of time doing, and so I'm going to give you some context, not to go too far into context, but please know we've had kids on campus since September 8th. We've had 260 students on campus during this time period, and we continue to bring in kids, not only more kids in because of access issues, but also because of their needs within the community. And so just know that we continue to bring in students along the way. We continue to learn from our mistakes, and we continue to learn from each other and challenge each other to keep all of us safe. Just to give context regarding the safety, we've had 4 staff/students who have come into the school district who have been COVID positive. We've had over 60 staff students who we've had to send home because of COVID-related symptoms. And we've had 11 students/staff who have had close contact with COVID positive individuals outside of the school district. So know that we've followed along. We're maintaining the data. We've worked closely with the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department. We ask questions when we don't know the answers. And we've had basically the Lori Carnes on speed dial each time we have a question. So one of the things that'll occur as part of, and which has already occurred, is that we're going to promote the safety principles. Please know that we have competing metrics in regional divisions that are honestly have created some confusion in regards to when to open and when to close. So we're dealing with that right now with the matrices that we received prior to the holiday break, and then the matrices that we received after the holiday break. And that ends up creating some, I'll call it anxiety, not only with people in our community, but with our staff as well. In regards to the parents, in regards to the other piece that we have, this has to be a team effort. Parents, I've got to be honest with you, have been awesome. They've been signing up and making sure that their kids come to school, number one, healthy. And if they have a symptom, they're letting us know. They're submitting all the required paperwork that they need for their students to return to school when they've had to be out. And parents are honestly, they're allowing their students, they're giving their students masks. Kids are coming to school masked up. And honestly, when people thought about masks being a big issue in the school, it's not. It's not a big issue. Kids are wearing them. Kindergartners are wearing them. Preschoolers are wearing them. Our students with very special needs are wearing them. Not all of them, but they're wearing them. Staff are asking for the right types of PPE. They know the type they're supposed to be wearing. And so we have a good base in mind. We have a good base for the rollout of kids starting with preschool through first grade. We have a really good base already. And honestly, what's going to happen is that the students who have been coming are going to end up leading the way when the rest of the students come in. So our plan includes, as a starting point, we'll be starting number one with training. Carrie, you brought up some things about training and people confused about what those precautions are. We're going to be doing a training on January 29th. We also have, which is part of your board docs, we have a handbook. I'll be honest with you, people do make fun of my handbooks, but and obviously nobody reads handbooks, right? And so for those of you who've been teachers,
I do.
yeah. And so handbooks, but that's going to be our source. That's going to be our guiding principle. Whether people read it or not, I'm going to go to page 39 and be able to say, by the way, remember on page 39. We're going to do training on that handbook. We're going to be doing training on masks. We're going to be doing training on routines. We're going to be doing training on the screening process. And we're going to be going through each of the areas. Sanitation's a big one. Sanitation as well on that particular date. And we'll continue to provide training and support as people have questions. In addition to that, we'll be doing orientations. Parents need to know what the school day is going to look like. Parents need to know what the requirements are for their children. So when they come in and they say, what things should we bring or have our kids bring to school? We're going to tell them nothing. What we want people to do is bring masks, water, and tissues, and a charged Chromebook. We'll take care of the materials because we want to make sure that they're clean and everyone has their individual stuff to go along. So those are the things that we're going to be asking for. And we're going to do those orientations either as a whole group for the school or prior to each student group coming in. When the students come in, for the P1 students who are coming in, as you know, in taking a look at the document, for elementary, it's going to be an AM/PM session. This allows for two things. The first thing, it allows, number one, for students to become acclimated to being back in school after a year. Number two, it allows for us not to have lunchtime, which honestly is a good time for all cohorts to start mingling, which we don't want. we don't want the cohorts to mingle very much. And so actually at all. And so this allows for us to maintain our cohorts. Number 3, it allows us for teachers to have their planning midday and their lunch midday. And it allows for sanitation and cleaning between sessions. And so there's so many different benefits. A lot of thought has gone into that so that it eliminates, well, it adds another safety mitigation measure during our day. And then at the end of each day, it allows us time to be able to clean those buildings as well. And then there's also, we talked a little bit about the secondary, and once we move through preschool through 5th, then we'll begin taking a look, and it could happen simultaneously, hopefully getting into phase 2. This will allow some additional time for us to be able to start thinking about our middle school and high school, which is looking, as you know, an A and B, A-B hybrid schedule. Just want to add just a caveat to this, the safety mitigation process. We ordered and received over 5,000 COVID-19 test kits. We're doing a dry run with our test kits to test for our staff, and then for kids 16 and over. We're probably going to use our athletes as guinea pigs for that, so we keep our athletes safe. But we do have test kits that we received from the Tacoma-Pierce County Health Department. I think it's closer to 8,400. 8,400 test kits. Anyway, I was talking about going into the black market, but I'll tell you that each kit's worth about $100, and so it's not an inexpensive. I'll call it a gift, an inexpensive gift. The other thing that we've done also is I reached out to Safeway today. If you remember, a couple years ago we had a little measles outbreak. We developed some relationships with Safeway. So I contacted the regional manager regarding, and because I'll tell you right now, at the local level, they don't have as much control as you think they do. But at the regional level, so I contacted the regional pharmacy for Safeway / Albertsons, and we had a conversation actually today regarding putting and working with Ording. It seems like a really good place to start with only 300 and some staff members to get into basically a private-public agreement around vaccinations for those who want the vaccinations. So,
how about board members, Chris? Can we go with you?
Well, if you want to participate in the testing, to make it a safety mitigation process, you have to agree to do it on a weekly basis. And I'm saying that, only reason I'm saying that, doing it on an intermittent basis doesn't create a safety scenario. Doing it on a weekly basis does, and it's self-administered. We'll be gathering each of the test kits on a weekly basis, thanks to Curtis, on a weekly basis, and then sending them UPS each week. For our staff, we're starting with coaching staff as well, and then with our students who are 16 and over. So we're trying to kind of build that in. So yeah, and then this week, for those of you who don't know, we started our athletics program. I was there today. I think they thought I was checking up on them. I didn't want that feeling, but I think it just came out that way anyway. And so checking in, they were all, the first day, as you can imagine, was a level of confusion. Today, I'll tell you right now, those kids were social distancing. They were wearing masks, not gaiters. I guess that's going to be my little T-shirt someday. Masks, not gaiters. And social distancing. When they had a mask break, they were all along the fence, all along the way. Some runners actually practice social distancing more than others, especially the one in the front. And so he just kind of darted out, and he was social distancing from the rest of them, George. And sorry.
It certainly wasn't me.
So the sports program is up and running, and we're only allowing those who have actually had their. We have a COVID-19 screener for each of the athletes. And if anyone has had COVID, they have to get a doctor's signature, because there have been some the results of some of the kids who've had COVID in the past. There are some ongoing issues related to heart conditions and lung conditions, and so we want to make sure that they're safe to come back to our athletic fields. Are there any questions, Tony, board, anyone else who's out there? I don't know.
About the return to school plan?
Yes.
So I do have a concern, and I've shared this with some. My primary concern is we have one group of students that, although they don't meet our definition of at risk, really I have the most concern for, and that's our seniors. And the reason I have the most concern for our seniors is, I think everyone can agree COVID school has not been beneficial to our students. And my fear is with our seniors, if we don't get them back into the classroom quickly and give them the ability to work with teachers to kind of right some of their ships, we're going to have a whole class of COVID seniors that are 2-year seniors. And I really think we have a responsibility to try as much as we can to make our seniors whole and to get them back into classrooms and get them the opportunity to make sure they can graduate in June.
Yeah, and that's one thing that we've spent time, and I know Lynn's brought it up over and over again, and which is great, that there's a concern. I also had a conversation with Cliff Fries today about it, and there is a large number of seniors who could be at risk of not graduating if we don't right the ship. And so that is something that we've talked about as part of cabinet and as part of leadership as one of our other, I'll call it other priority groups, one of our priority groups sooner than later.
I'd really like to see kind of a second look at the plan. I understand what we're looking at today is to get the youngers back in as soon as possible. Tony, I'd really like to see us take another pass at how quickly we can get the seniors into a productive learning environment on site so that we can, help get them out the door. Not that we want to get rid of them. We just want to make sure they don't stay here.
Yeah, George, we and members of the board, we're very anxious to move this, the various grade levels together and move it through the month of March. And month of February, and that there's a 2-week lag between groups of students coming in. We want to be able to test the waters to find out exactly what's going on. We just learned tonight that in elementary school in Enumclaw, there's been an infection spread that apparently may close the school entirely. We've got to be careful as we approach, and we recognize getting our seniors back as soon as possible is a priority to all of us. But first, let's see what it looks like in getting our youngest students in, and give us some time to assess where we are with the COVID-19 infection. And but I know that every board member has urged me to do whatever we can to get our seniors back and salvage as much of the school year as possible for them. And we will strive to do that.
We had talked before about some of the high school reaching out to some of them and doing some extra things with them. I don't remember specifically what it was. I see Chris nodding his head, so I'm not making it up.
Yeah, so one of the things that we've done, and as part of this plan, is we're not eliminating slowly bringing back other kids. And so we've been spending an enormous amount of time reaching out to students. I know that the high school actually increased the number that are coming in. It's closer to 15 now for that, because that was one of the, we call it at risk, or kids who weren't accessing an educational program because of whatever reason, from connectivity to lack of support in their home or homeless status. We have a lot of, we're continuing to grow that student by student. I know what George is talking about. George is talking about more about, hey, let's take a look at this whole group cohort, the seniors. But we're doing that, Kathy, by school. Every building has a separate cohort of students who are continuing to bring back because of access issues. So, and those groups continue to grow.
Which was another point that you brought up earlier, and you're bringing it up again, is one of the things, and we talked about this with ACT, that I really appreciate now is that we seem to learn from the things that we've done, modify them where we need to, change them, reach out more. And I hope with this plan, I know we have to have a plan to start, but if we find that perhaps this isn't working out the way we planned, that we keep that attitude of modifying and adjust, which, every teacher knows that one. But I think that that's one of the things that's going to make it so that we make it through this together. Is if we listen to them.
And Kathy, first time in my career, I haven't been flexible, and in regards to safety measures. And so I
don't mean that.
Yeah, and that I know.
Mean that.
And you're right, but in regards to the safety measures, us being vigilant, so we don't end up with an elementary like we do in Enumclaw. We have to be vigilant. We have to be. People ask me today about the darn gators again. I'm like sitting there going like, God, the gator thing again. But people wear masks, and if people aren't wearing them, this is what we're going to do. Kid wants to wear a gator, we'll put on a mask underneath it. And so, those are the kinds of things, sanitation. Well, we didn't clean the classroom. Well, that's not appropriate. We need to clean that classroom. We need to sanitize it. Well, I don't want to. Well, are you asking or telling? Well, I'm telling. And so, yeah. And, I was asked that, by the way. And so, so those are the things I think if we maintain that, it's we've been successful so far. And I think that we can get through this if we're vigilant. And I agree, we have to ebb and flow. We have to adjust as we go because we've never done this before. And so people ask me, what do you think I should do, Chris? I'm going, I have no earthly idea. We have to build this thing together.
And Chris, just so you know, I did not mean the sanitation or the protocol or any of those things. Those are very, in fact, one of my other questions was, you mentioned between the AM and the PM, the classroom being sanitized and cleaned. Who's doing that?
Lynn, do you want to answer that? Or
Kathy, we will be bringing back our custodial staff January 25th. Okay. And Curtis is working with them, continuing to go over the protocols. They've got it down. They know what they're using. And in the return to school video that Holly prepared for our staff, for a welcome back to our staff, a couple of our custodians talk about how they're cleaning and how they are maintaining the highest safety standards. And I just want to take this time to acknowledge that Chris is leading the way for us. He has done a fabulous job, and he has set a standard, and it makes all the difference in the world. And secondly, I'm going to put my word in right there with George. I've been saying, bring those seniors back. They only get one high school senior year, we hope. And we want it to be coming soon. So thank you, George.
And I understand. I guess someone was quick. I understand it's a plan. Let's get in. Let's see if it's working. We can always leapfrog, if we have to get him. I'm with you, George. We got to get him in school. Yeah. Your senior year is the best year, but start low. But if we see it's working, everything is working, we can always leapfrog. and get them back as quick as possible.
Yeah.
And knowing that it's a partnership with our families, because they're going to be doing daily health screenings with their kids. They're not going to be sending their kids to school sick. If they are sick, they're going to stay home. Those are all the things that by partnering with our community, that's where the difference will lie.
I want to just repeat something I said earlier tonight. I don't ever want us to be in a position of over promising and under delivering. And we want to take this step by step, be safe. And our goal is to get our seniors to have a senior year and to have a graduation that is a far bigger celebration than last year's graduation ceremony.
Oh, but that was fun.
That was so much fun.
It was fun, but I'm talking about something bigger and better.
Yes.
I had one other question that relates to Lynn and Chris, and that had to do with you said no lunch time, but are we still doing the lunches to go? And if so, have we brought, or do we have, that looks like it would be more employees there?
Yes, we've spent time planning not only our grab and go lunches for students who are in school on those days, but how we're going to get meals to them when they are not at school. So at our elementary, they'll pick up a breakfast and a lunch in a sack. And Joanne and Marcy are working on the schedule for our food service employees to return. It looks like our plan includes opening up additional kitchens at our other schools in order to ensure that several things: a speedier delivery of lunches to our kids while they're at school, and more capacity to serve our stay-at-home kids. And also, if there is an outbreak somewhere among our staff, we could close one kitchen and we'll have a couple others open. So we're trying to think of all those things that we haven't done before.
Yeah, and Kathy, and Kathy, one of the things that I'm working with the two buildings, that the buildings will be delivering the lunches to the classrooms prior to them leaving each day. And so rather than having the students move through a building, the lunches, and I saw somebody had a radio flyer over at OPS, and they used the radio flyer to bring the lunches to each of the classrooms. And so we're delivering the lunches rather than having kids go to the lunches.
Hey,
That
Chris,
was my other question.
yeah, Chris, you want to give the news about how happy parents will be with regard to school supply lists?
Oh, and so well, basically we're providing the supplies. That's number one. And as of yet, this summer we had a supply drive with the local community, and Molina Healthcare provided us with supplies for like little pencil boxes and things like that, so that the students can maintain their own supplies. And I know that we're ordering some other things for the teachers, but every student will have their own little supply box. Like I said, the only thing that students will be bringing is a well-charged Chromebook, their own water, 2 masks, and some tissue.
So President Holland, this is an action item. If the board is prepared to take action, I would appreciate it.
Wait, I had 2 things I wanted to just bring forward to the board. And Chris, for you and really the district team and our administrators, I've received multiple emails from teachers who are facing challenges with the AM PM schedule and their own, they've got their kids are in our schools as well. And so I know it's kind of the chicken and the egg. We've got to figure out how we're going to open before we can, and who's going to be with us, what staff are going to be in school and what staff are going to be continuing to do remote before we can tackle some of those challenges. And I just would plead with the group to please support them as they deal with these family challenges, as well as taking care of our students. And the second piece is communication. It feels like we've been communicating 24/7 about this plan and how can we accomplish this for our schools. everyone's safe. But just to keep in mind that as much as we're communicating together as a district, that the families out there also have so many questions, and anything we can do to keep informing the community about all the steps we're taking to keep everyone safe and how things will work, where the rubber hits the road, what does it look like when I send my kid to school?
Yeah.
So please make that a priority. I know you want to. I know it's a desire. So please keep that communication value high when it comes to interfacing with our community.
Yeah, and
Mary, if the board takes action and approves this plan today, we have the communications ready. Holly and Tony and I have worked on making sure that happens along with Bonnie. And at the end of the meeting, if the board approves this plan, the message will go out.
And part of the and part of the plan, Carrie, includes those orientations for each group.
Yes.
And so when families go to those virtual orientations, that's where the rubber hits the road regarding the questions and answers. And since we're doing it grade level by grade level, I'm not saying it's a small group, but I'm saying that my hope is that during that time we'll be able to answer most of the questions during that time.
Right. So much of this is going to be, even though we've had students in our buildings now since September, there's still a lot of figuring out to do, and we're going to have to do it in the moment. So I recognize that and appreciate the efforts you've already got in place.
And Carrie, it's almost like you read my mind. The two things I was going to bring up was, please remember our teachers are an important asset for us, and to work with them and their families whenever we can, because we couldn't do this without them. And the other thing was the education of parents, of when Chris, you just brought up about the orientation. Do they have to attend that? Is that is that obligatory, or is that and if they don't attend and they're not obliged to, are you going to have that information someplace else so that they can access it? Because
that's a good point. That's a really good idea, Kathleen. We can have, by making sure that we post and making sure that the buildings have that ready to go, any of the information we presented at those orientations, that it's posted, because not every family is going to be able to make it.
And we need, one of the biggest issues right now with people is communication. And we know that there's no way you can do enough of it to get everybody. And I'd rather that we are at fault for overkill than somebody said, well, I mean, there's always going to be somebody that says, I don't know, but then we can at least say, well, you had that piece of paper there, or whatever it is.
Or put it on the website. Put it on the website for everyone to see. Yeah.
I'd say mail it out and put it on the website.
Yeah. So many families have kids in multiple grade levels. It might be good to watch it for each one.
Yep. I don't think we could do too much of that one.
On that note, we need to get a motion to accept the reopening plan as submitted by the superintendent. Can I get a motion?
Yep. I will move to accept the reopening plan as submitted by the superintendent.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
The first and second, all in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed?
Opposed.
Thank you. Noted, George opposed. All right. Moving right along, and then for the question, we're going to go the consent agenda as prepared. Any questions? If none, can we get a motion to approve the consent agenda as prepared?
I move to approve the consent agenda as prepared.
Can we get a second?
I second it.
The first and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass. Do we have any student reps among us?
I'm here.
All righty. Hello.
Hi, you guys. Good evening.
Hi, Nadine.
Haley is not able to be here today, so she asked me to take her place, and I was very glad to do it. I just want to say first a big thank you to all you board members who have been working so efficiently and diligently to try and get us students back into school. The effort you have put into this plan and the problems you're combating, you guys are just doing so good with that. And a lot of the students I've talked to are excited about moving forward, coming back. And of course, there are some worries about it, but for the most part, students are excited. And the athletes who have their sports coming back are absolutely ecstatic. That seems to be going well so far. And like you said, social distancing and wearing masks has been seen. So that should be continuing to go good, hopefully. Um, our clubs are still going on, virtual meetings, like Knowledge Bowl. They're having virtual games with some of the other schools, so we still get to continue with that even through online learning. And STEM Club, we're still doing our TSA events this year. We've reached the first deadline for our events, and that's going good. Second semester is about to end, and I've heard some student concerns about their grades because some students are really having trouble with online learning. So I think a good thing for second semester would be trying to get some of the students from NHS, the students who have been chosen for their hard work in school, to maybe start up a tutoring program with some of the kids who aren't doing so well, to try and just have kids be able to graduate, have them not have to take those credit retrieval classes. So if we can get that started, that might be a good idea. I can talk to Mr. McNinch and see if we can get kids from NHS to volunteer to tutor after school some days. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Nadine.
Thanks, Nadine.
Good idea. Thank you. Any other student rep available? None? We'll move to board comments. Any comments from the board?
Yeah, I want to explain my no vote on the plan to reopen schools. I strongly support reopening schools. I think it's critical, and I think it's solidly in the best interest of our kids. My issue is any plan that doesn't denote or doesn't have seniors slated for return time in February. I think we miss that boat. It's that critical of an issue to me.
Any other comments from the board? Oh, go ahead, Kathy.
I wanted to say we've heard a lot from the community lately. We've heard a lot from the teachers and other staff, and I have to say this is one of those issues that we're really divided on how this should play out, how this should happen, how we feel about it, what should happen. And one of the things we've been seeing a lot lately throughout our whole country is that we have to remember that there's got to be some kind of middle ground to find a way for us to work together. And I hope that people understand that, a lot of us have gone through a lot of anguish coming up with how this can happen, how it can't happen. And please remember, we really do care, and we're trying to do what we can. And it's tough, and we still want to hear from you. We still want to do our best to make sure that this works for as many people as we can. And thanks. I just had to say that. Otherwise,
Well, I just want to say, Chris, thank you for the hard work you put into this. And
Yes.
we at this point where we can get some of the kids back, but we push it for all the kids back. And like I say, we can always leapfrog if necessary to get people back that we need to. We're starting small, but hopefully we'll end up big. Any other questions? Hearing none, the meeting will be adjourned at 7:42 p.m. You guys have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.